second round, 22 September 2023, 11 o'clock, 18 minutes, Friday at Toast, Rio de Janeiro City, Brazil. Yeah, the interference, criminal interference, at least since 2014 by the corruption and criminal purpose on departments and violating rights and guarantees. Things we are doing, issues we are having. Some issues kind of very critical, protected by secrecy, and the interference made is against the talk we are having, based on corruption, criminal association, transnational organized crimes and departments to protect or sustain tax evasion, white-collar crime, financial evasion, and general financial crimes. And we observe that also affect the productive system, globally talking, especially when you do not act properly and strictly against this, but the opposite, sponsoring the criminal purpose by the misuse of power, boosting piracy of products, and stealing immaterial asset, or choking, and if you can do both, trying to destroy. The corruption achieving a functional level by violation of rights and guarantees, and was advised that you will perpetrate industrial crime as you did, and we prove it. And after have the request against all your acts, you consider it an absurd. It is your own judgment as mere procedure about the guiltiness you have, the consciousness about all things illegal you did. Because corruption in a local level or international, especially guiding biohazard weapons of mass destruction and clustering these as bubble at the consumer market, covered by frauds and fake records, threats real. And you had therefore accusation, which was the trust as pandemic, the trust and antitrust justice, but carrying the issues to the International Criminal Court by the misuse of power with trust as common area, the culinary on corruption, with purpose against mankind, considering living a great third war as civil war spreaded and integrated to achieve the goals by the organized crime, which is not suffer consequence. We kicked, and this is the history we have. The wild data attached chart number 1, 100 years of program science. We are putting things in a real train, like they love, we share love by reciprocity, but using the big iron and the machines optimized to do this. The 20 up to present time, and be the system as communication, which is the World Wide Web. Threats you did, worldwide threats. The violation perpetrated by Brazil, with no excuse to be made, with your peers at G20 and all others. In Brazil are worldwide threats, who are all a threat against mankind, with regression by this paycheck until the chairs, using codified values to measure the risk and do the treatment, considering how you treat the bottom as organized crime by organized crimes at the top, trying to expose the instability they have, but indeed improving the unfairness and arbitrariness complained as part of the institutional violence. Kind of, patterns as programs that you have, procedural, structured, oriented, non-structured, multi-paradigm or paradigm. This was the idea by the first chart. The chart number 1, we started at the purpose of the prospector learn a lot of things, and then they have the conglomerates of data, the multi-paradigm, the big data in the end. And we will observe 100 years of program size, chart number 2, which how the parallel computing started, and we had some instruments available, the family as program and program activity, and you have a lot of things made. And since you created the complex instruction and the reduced instruction, you of course must have lines able to understand the drill down at columns you do. And this kind of instruction will be the syntax or reduced, and the execution by lambda having the storage or the stochastic process allowed some companies on present time changing the portfolio as the first card you have as gift card as data computing. But indeed the big iron is smaller than ever but stronger than ever for sure, and it's the core business of the activity, I have no doubt about this. We had this as chart number 3, the types of paradigm as reduced instruction, complex instruction, or instruction set, which raises the kind of interaction of the users with the instruments you have. Nanotechnology misguided by criminal purpose in all areas will affect the purpose in all areas, and it's going by communication. It's a worldwide web, it's a worldwide threat, must be treated as a threat major. Even like this we observe now, the use today quite simple, quite clear chart, and you satisfy your needs and desire. Chart number 4, CGQ MOUTINHO, 100 years of program science. Phase 1, we have the philosophy of embedded system as the very first thing we had. We could understand that the corrupted instrument or partition or piece of your architecture indeed will compromise the entire architecture. The interaction of this compromised architecture with others will compromise the entire structure or system. And this system will be corrupted, was proved at the back system, and today in the morning in all others, by criminal purpose inside, with interaction between drivers or the intra bias as cognitive bias inside the programs. I would say that your drive is reading or running. The project USA Europe, considering white label step, so and royalties for sure. White data tax used at the central banks Europe and carry our orders by the moment. We could observe that you have our situation as system of integrity. We have a single driver corrupted. We have a single driver corrupted. Observe the integration of your system corrupted inside the ecosystem or environment. Bank system, financial system, global economy, global defense. And this will give the exponential behavior and the interaction by this kind of fail, as you can observe here. This fail here, which starts at the driver, now the system embedded at the environment with the corrupted driver or department, for instance, your Supreme Court, and the entire global judicial system, considering the International Criminal Court, affected, even by the request to do the judgment against them all, recognizing the economic espionage, having the talk with the antitrust justice, apply all consequences. The case is estimated on 11 billions or 10 billions, plus all things complained as 39 trillion. This relation here, as you can observe, if got linked at the system, global as environment, will present the idea as domain and image. Domain on regular area, as for instance, Supreme Court Justice has the image as criminal. The image as criminal, domain indeed are prevalent, indeed has the dominance at the domain of regular area, indeed the criminal. Purpose is running the Supreme Court. We could observe this at the idea embedded system, and now your desire will be satisfied. The US COBOL, it's an American asset. part of the American history, just like all other century American companies. 100% USA, observing and respecting the Constitution of the United States until the bone, especially the preamble. And if you do not accept this, you must ask your own resignation of those companies. Common business-oriented language. The first thing we must have, business-oriented has a hyphen, which implies something linked or attached. It's made like this. It's procedural. It means it's a thunder. You can't stop. Like the Terminator. You can stop. It's imperative, will be made. It's object-oriented, as you can observe, has a hyphen here. Because the object business is oriented by codes, unable to read things on present time, optimized by me, flawless, and having the destruction that we are doing. Starting with the 39 trillion legally charged and for sure totally accomplished, because it's a right with the integrity and the constitutional conformance not only in Brazil. It's generic because you take the outlook of all things, codify all things looked at, and have the treatment by the codes that you're having. We kick it from the World Wide Web, having worldwide threats, codify them all clustering, and allowing the company, for instance, use the mainframe computers as the gift card at the past nowadays, as the cloud computing. And we observe that this idea is inside the US Department of Defense. When you do the cognitive bias violating, for instance, the Google IoT or any other things as observed and made by Brazil, imposing our duty, I would say, to request a directory and US Defense opened to prevent the misuse of IoT, and having an uncomfortable situation against this American company or other as a stakeholder and consumer, I can do this, and I did. And we are closing the case just in the way it was supposed to be closed, with elements codified to be under the treatment properly applied, considering how they treat things at the bottom of their own area. If they are really strictly and severe as application of the law against the sometimes innocent people or not relevant criminals. Can you picture the top criminal chair at top institution like the Supreme Court, for instance? They must suffer the major and ultimate treatment. We will observe that the US Defense as Homeland Security United States is part of the NATO. We told that the Security Forum Brazil USA, with the corruption we have, is the corruption of the Security Forum will affect the NATO. America embedded at the NATO with the corruption, for instance, by the driver or the association as peripheral Brazil, now has the legitimacy to act, especially even by a nuclear strike, for instance. If you did the unfair aggression against this state, violate your heart in the constitution of this state or any other company, or protecting your criminal activity inside the department with your treasonous act against your own constitution, treasonous or others, and you expect that suffer no consequence from the worldwide defensive and security. Major threats, Brazilians, Brazucas. So the idea is quite simple and procedural. Will happen. Imperative, you can stop. Object oriented, knows who you are and non-view what you do. Generic, will look everything and codify everything looked. Mainframes computer at the past, having the idea as columns with the depuration as level or drill down by the lines you do. Cloud computing on present time, allowing to do the transference and be a voyager inside this space here. US defensive system acts by spiral analysis and a lot of other things based on this concept. having which brings the concept as non-structured paradigms by the dynamic things you have, and instruction set raising the levels of interaction you do. And it's on NATO if the corruption of Brazil and USA got transferred to the NATO, for instance, as we are having proved. Indeed, the directory we requested to be opened is valid. All consequences affordable, since recognized one more time the economic espionage by the misuse of power. The misuse of power and institutional power affect all things by the relation with all things with these rotten elements, this case the Brazilian peers. Question: can you treat the problem? It's codified, right? It's how the US COBOL is optimized. Have a great weekend.